Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the XDI SBS Experience live show. We're at episode 18 and diving into the smart manufacturing world again.
Yeah, today we are talking location. And guys, don't worry, we'll not talk real estate here. So we really will talk asset tracking for smarter manufacturing that delivers rapid bottom line returns. Let's do this.
Hey, nice intro, Christoph. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you, Andrew?
Doing good. I know you got construction going on over there, so hopefully you're not going to be leaping off building something for us. So welcome. Today, everyone, we return to our familiar quick fire rounds, so be ready to agree or disagree. And then followed by that, the fuller discussion with our guests to talk how location services can help an organization's bottom line, its role in the smart factory, getting people back to work more safely, and improving compliance and quality. So, who's with us today?
We have today Zeki Gunay with us. He is a veteran in the high-tech industry. He had many leading positions in the engineering and manufacturing area. Today, he is the CEO of a company called Kratos, specialized in advanced sensoring, artificial intelligence, robotics, and automation. And the right guy for this topic.
Sounds good. So ready, set, go.
If you want to end inventory and work in progress bottlenecks, workforce overstaffing or understaffing, or equipment shortage problems, take a look at AssetRx. It brings you information from the physical world. You can see the real-time changes in your labor budget, schedules, and planned throughput. Use AssetRx to take control of your revenue plans by having real-time digital visibility into your physical operations and workflows. Enjoy digital transformation and immediate returns.
Zeki, welcome to the show, sir.
Hello.
How are you?
Thank you.
Cooling down in the Bay Area?
Can you guys see me okay?
We can see you and hear you loud.
It's great to be seen. Thank you very much.
Good. So, Zeki, it must be getting pretty busy up there figuring out tracking and tracing people at this time during COVID-19, I'm guessing.
Yes, we have recently had a new surge, which is not pleasant, and running out of capacities in hospitals. And also, we're trying to be at work, but as safe as possible.
You bet. We're trying to keep Governor Newsom at bay and keep him calm so he doesn't lock us all down again. Well, fingers crossed. First up today, Zeki, we are going quick fire round. If you're ready mentally, physically to get into this, you're going to have 5 minutes with 5 questions. Start the clock. We're off and running. So we're counting down from 5 and 4, 3, 2, 1.
Here it comes, Zeki. Number 1, which organization do you admire the most for their Industry 4.0 or disruptive technology approach, and why?
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to name a company or an organization per se, but I definitely admire companies from Europe in adopting Industry 4.0 applications and basically finding new use cases that are brought on by the technology. The unit lot manufacturing kind of approaches that they have is basically a breakthrough, and also combined with it, location services is definitely one key item that's basically brought on by the technologies.
So what is the? Thanks for the European slant on that, Christoph, and I really appreciate it. But getting back to it, what's the disruptive technology that you believe is having the greatest impact on industry?
Yeah, so we're basically in some exciting times, right? The emergence of hyper-connected systems and hyper-connected entities inside the automation because of Industry 4.0. 5G is going to have a lot of impact in very low latency communications and connecting a lot of these entities together in any operation that you can think about.
Got it.
Okay. Next question, Zeki. Supply chains today are more, let's say, unpredictable than ever before. So how do companies deal with that?
We see more often companies generating alternative supply chains and also dividing their supply chains into smaller chunks and interchangeable chunks. Bringing manufacturing or bringing most of the manufacturing or supply chain onshore. If they're not able to do that, interchanging manufacturing or testing or different steps, various steps in the supply chain process by creating alternatives is basically the approach today.
Okay, got it. So how do you cut through all of the data to find the 20% that brings the 80% result?
When we're looking into manufacturing operations or any physical operation, we basically collect data and we basically proceed forward in a data-driven fashion. And this data, whether it has been collected before or we're just collecting it, it's important to collect or basically analyze the right data at the right time. There are techniques that we're using to cut down the not so much efficient 80%, such as machine learning, such as the other technologies that are available to us. The computing power is huge. We're able to sift way accurately today than ever before.
Thanks. Great. Zeki, I mean, we saw it in the news in Europe. I mean, just to refer to that, massive shutdowns again, maybe something that will come here as well. So what is your take on this? Should the world go back to work and how?
Yeah, the going back to work, unless you already have not, I mean, it is an essential thing to do, right? I mean, we will need to go back to work in a safe, we will need to in a secure manner. And the recent events have created a wide gap between blue collar and white collar workers, and we basically need to be careful, get used to the new ways of working together, keeping our distance from each other, and emphasize the importance of keeping hygiene. As well as putting new regulations or new techniques to keep people safe.
Got it. You're in there. It's interesting. You're done. You're clear. You did it in the nick of time. In fact, beyond that. So 5G. Aside from these Apple devices, which is 5G, 5G apparently, when are you seeing 5G coming into industry?
Yeah, you showed your phone. One would hope so. One would hope that you would have the service.
5G, that one.
Yeah.
When are you seeing it coming into industry?
So as you can easily imagine, 5G will enable a lot of use cases. There are the presence of private networks in 5G that you can actually deploy as a private network inside your operation.
Yeah.
These kind of initiatives would actually have will enable companies create their own use cases, create their own methods of basically using the data a lot more efficiently than they have ever before. That's one example of 5G coming into the industrial automation.
Got it. Okay, good. Everyone in the audience, please ask questions, make comments. It's right there. We're looking at them now. We've got one just come in. We're going to pick that up a little later, Zeki, relevant to the approach to location services, but we're going to come back to that. But please get your questions, get your comments in, everyone. Let's move on to the main discussion now. Location services. What's it all about? How can location services help to improve an organization's bottom line?
Yeah, so this is a great question too. Well, in business, you're talking about bottom line. We ask questions about our bottom line, right? Or profitability or operational parameters. If you're a lawyer, you ask why. If you're an accountant, you ask how much, and many other questions are dominating your profession. In manufacturing, in operations, probably the most asked question is where. And you know, when you answer this question, you can actually understand a lot more about the status of your operation, how things are going.
So second, let me ask you, so this is really for you, this observation that's industry specific? When you talked about lawyers, you said that now manufacturing is really about the where, or is this also applicable to something else?
Well, it is applicable to just about anything you can think about in business, right? But when you think about the location data being a unique identifier compared to anything else in an operation or in the presence of a physical operation, that's basically the most important item here. One object, one entity, it can be a piece of inventory, it can be a piece of asset, it can be a person. It can only be present in one location at a given time. So you can use it as a unique identifier. So the questions that are asked in operations, why, can have many answers. What can have many answers. There might be a few people involved in a process, and there might be a he said, she said situation. But if you answer the question where, there's only one answer at a given time. So that would actually eliminate 30 to 50% of all the questions to come after that anyway, after your first question. So if you know the location of any entity, as I said, this entity can be a piece of inventory, an asset used in operations, or a person conducting the tasks. It basically gets you to understand, how your operation is going.
Okay.
You decide, yeah.
Just again, for your continuous improvement process, I would say it's still also the follow-up question will be the why, right? It's not just about the where. It's just the beginning, the where.
Absolutely. So you can actually keep on asking these questions, but the locations indicate, or the answer to where indicates the dynamics of your execution engine. And if you look at where things are in sequence in a process, then you can ask the other questions more efficiently. If you answer the where question accurately, you can tie the answers to your KPIs associated with your operations more efficiently. You can find out your overall labor efficiency by looking at the locations of people. You can understand your inventory usage efficiency by looking at where the inventory is sitting. Are they in process or are they located in buffers? And you can also see the schedules, how the inventory is flowing through your process, or your with inventory is processing.
I get you, I agree. But how are you're obviously not only just collecting the data, but how do you actually visualize that critical path? How do you visualize that schedule and therefore be able to adjust to improve the reality of actually what's in front of you?
Yeah, so when we basically talk about location, and when we talk about all these operations coming together, it is a key item to understand, or to look at a screen, visually capture what you're looking at, or what your operation looks like. So we have generated tools to make these operations easier, to make the data more understandable, whether it's location data or it's data associated with the answers of the other questions. But we use visual analytics for understanding what is happening. But even before that, to plan the process, we use graphical tools, the no-code or low-code setting, to basically plan your process one by one, what's going to happen, where the locations are going to be for each entity, and what the timelines are going to be for each entity, and so on and so forth. And then compare the actual data, location data, to these planning tools. And we just basically take the difference. Are we executing in time? Are you executing in a is our execution corresponding to our plan? That's basically how we get to the bottom of that problem.
So let's take that now. Just a little. Probably you've touched on a lot of it already. But what is that contribution, the role of location services to a smart factory, which is obviously a little more real time?
Yeah. So when we talked about how we basically plan the flow of inventory, or the graphical tools that we use to understand the outcomes of the processes. And if you think about having this data available second by second, and doing these operations with the computing power that we have in hand today in a real-time basis, you can tie the locations of entities to the KPIs of an operation.
Seki, I get it, and you mention all the time location information, but what about the things like condition monitoring, etc.? Is that part of that solution as well, like temperatures, usage, stuff like that?
Absolutely. The condition monitoring aspect of it can be weaved into your data set really easily. The details of any operation or any KPI that is extracted from the operation would include how my inventory is doing, how my assets are doing, and what are the conditions of my people even. Are they overworked, or are they working in an environment where it's too hot or too humid, or and stuff like that, right? So if you're attaching, if you want to find out more about your operation, you attach more and more qualifiers, or more and more quantified magnitudes to your location data, so that you know when, where, and how. So that answers the how question a little bit more than anything else, right?
Great.
Got it. Okay. So let's kind of pull it together. In an artificial intelligence, let's just explore that a little further, if we may. Ever learning artificial intelligence. I understand potentially there are significant savings, but to get to those answers obviously will take quite some time, and there's a lot of challenges, a year or two to go down the road. How can we start to shorten up those answers speed up therefore the ROI? Looking at that.
Can think about two things right out of the gate. One of them is using the data that has already been collected and hoping that that data is being collected in the right way. In any process, in any system, and machine learning systems are not any exceptions. Garbage in is garbage out. So you have to look at the data sets that you already have in hand and learn from them. But the other approach can be, and something that we use every day, is basically generating simulated data, generating automated systems or automated software tools, or sometimes mechanical tools that would replicate the exact operation, but run the operation way faster, like running the movie in a fast forward mode, and basically decide on what needs to get done at what point. And then we basically put variations in the data, and we basically generate a truth data set or a training set for the operation that we're going to be training for. So these are some techniques that we use to generate the make this operation faster and not wait 2, 3, 4 years to answer some questions.
Got it. Okay. Let's go COVID-19 just for a moment. You can't avoid it. How can location services help to bring back the workforce safely into the factories?
Yeah. So we talked about how we use location services and how we basically tie these locations of entities together. So just like we are understanding the interactions between a person, their location, and the process, we basically look at person-to-person interactions in our systems. And person-to-person interactions, well, first and foremost, would enable us, or they do today, by using wristbands like this that are basically location sensitive and proximity sensitive, would alert the workers in a manufacturing setting or in any kind of operation. If you're too close to the other one, it alerts you. It basically reminds you that you need to keep your distance. It reminds you to be safe. So these kind of tools that we have put together, we believe is going to be helpful for bringing the people back to work safely. The other thing that I can think about is what we're doing is contact tracing. If an outbreak happens, nobody wants that to happen, but if it happens, you understand who that person, identified person, has been with, and you can actually go backward in time, and you can easily tell who they have been around, and who they have been close to, and you can isolate those people from your operation, but keeping the rest of the people going.
That's a good point, and I think a lot of the big software vendors came up with their so-called apps and even having government contracts. Now, thinking about manufacturing, what is your opinion? Is this a feasible approach, going with a cell phone and an app to do contract tracing into a manufacturing environment? So why this is a feasible approach, or why not? Your opinion?
We have found out, we have talked to hundreds of customers and users and so on and so forth. We find out that in manufacturing environments, cell phones are a no-go. There are many reasons for it. One of them is companies do not want to rely on their workers' personal phones. Even if they did, they have to support, IT departments will have to support various operating systems and versions of the operating systems. So we basically replaced all this with sensors, wearable devices like this, or sensors that can be placed into uniforms, or we've got 30 plus form factors of sensors that can actually identify where you are and if you're close to somebody else or not. So cell phones are basically is a no-go for manufacturing environments, at least.
Got it. Okay. So getting back to the COVID-19, I understand the wearable devices. What kind of system can be deployed to monitor, would you say?
So the systems that can be monitored, they can be deployed, are basically, the simplest thing that I was talking about is reminding people to keep their safe, to keep their distance, and to keep their safe mode of operation. Educational tool, constant reminders when they get too close to each other. The second thing is contact tracing. If an outbreak happens, you know the potential areas or the potential people that contamination might have happened. The third, again, with location services, you know exactly where these individuals have been inside the operation, which areas, which work zones, which footprints. So you know exactly where to sanitize and clean up and basically eliminate further exposure to a virus like COVID-19.
Okay, got it. Last big question for you. How can location services help to enforce compliance and quality standards then?
Yeah, so the quality standards, what we call quality, comes out of consistency. In any process, in any manufacturing environment, we define these processes really well to the T. And the reason we do that is basically we want to achieve consistency and the quality that comes out of it, as I said. We use location services to monitor if these consistencies or repeatability is adhered to or not. The think about in any like food and beverage processing example in manufacturing. You can monitor the aging of the food, the aging of the materials. Think about stock rotation problems by using location services. You can see if stock rotation procedures are being adhered to. You look in a chemical processing operation. You can look at the deterioration of the materials. You can even talk about people's safety and security. So
that's a good one, Zeki. Let me jump in here. I mean, all that stuff is great, and really, when you talk about people, I want to highlight what about certification tracking, validation, maybe a potential interface to HR data. Where do you see location services can help here?
Absolutely, in many dangerous industries, I would say, like oil and gas, there are certain rules that you need to adhere by. For example, you have to give your employees enough time to rest, so an employee cannot be back into their station before a certain amount of time after their last shift. So they need to be away for 6 hours or 8 hours or 10 hours so that they are well rested. You can monitor easy compliance issues like this. You can eliminate lone worker problems in dangerous zones or dangerous tasks in any operation like that. In some operations, people are not allowed to be present one person at a time in a given location. They always need to have a buddy with them to basically make sure that both people are being safe. There's some security issues. A person cannot go probably into a server room in a critical or high secure environment. A healthcare worker cannot go into a narcotic medication room alone, and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of use cases that you can address with location services, and it's basically an optimal and also a cost-efficient solution.
Okay, got it. Thanks so much, Zeki. Kind of last question from me. What is the best approach to all of this, given that many people on the lines may see this as a bit of a big brother situation?
Yeah, so this has always been a question before COVID-19. And all of a sudden, it's not a big question at all.
Yeah.
Because people now understand what it contributes. So is it, shall we just concentrate on conspiracy theories, or shall we concentrate on how we can make people safe? And everybody's choosing the safety route today. Okay. So all of a sudden, the conspiracy theory is just, disappeared. And now, granted, when we work for a company, our sandbox of privacy is going to shrink a little bit. That's understood. But at what trade-off or at what expense. I mean, if we're basically gaining a lot more by looking at where people are in terms of with respect to the operation and nothing else, if it's bringing new levels of safety, I think we're okay.
Good. Yeah, nice angle. I'm going to shut up for a moment. We've got a lot of questions come in here. Let's go for one. Let's pick the first one. What do we have? First one is, what's your recommended approach to introducing location services? I guess that's kind of a step 1, step 2, step 3 situation.
Yeah. So it's a complicated problem. To basically give you one answer that will apply to all the industries and all the use cases. But if I wanted to categorize them, first of all, you have to understand how location services is going to connect with your operations and what you want to achieve at the end, right? It can be, as we said, it can be as simple as, what time did I show up to work today and what time did I leave, as opposed to swiping my ID badge. It basically saves time, saves effort, and eliminates. I mean, it's a very, very simple use case. But then you basically start looking at complicated use cases. So you basically have to figure out, once the location service is deployed, what would I want to get out of it? What is my biggest problem to solve? The second thing is how this is going to be operating. Is it going to be real time, or can it be a less frequently updated or asynchronous system? And the third one would probably be the choice of technology, underlying technology behind. What kind of wireless technologies can we use, or do we need to use wireless technologies at all? Can we do it in some other way by basically understanding locations of people by a non-wireless technology? So these are all the 3 things to consider, in my opinion, to deploy a location data. And then basically, I guess I'll give you a 4th one for free. The tool stack that you need to use, how it integrates into your ERP systems or the rest of your automation systems.
Got it. Use case, so quick wins. What kind of data frequency, real time, asynchronous, less frequent? What kind of technology and the integration side of things? Interesting. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you. Next question from Andrew. How do you go about creating a business case for track and trace technology, location services?
Yeah, so it's all about the ROI, right? And some people say more data or more information makes them upset, but in this case, you want to basically be happier and happier. So we would like to understand the return on investment on what we're going to be getting at the end, right? The location services, if the KPIs extracted out of recording the locations of entities, is going to be helping you out, or which KPI is going to matter the most, and what companies should invest in. Figuring that out is the important thing in the beginning. I guess ties into the first question as well. When we look at the business cases that can be profitable or that can be profiting from location services, it's basically either time critical or those business cases that basically benefit from accelerating revenue generation or eliminating obvious risks. So those are the business cases that we look at most of the time. There needs to be a clear bottom line improvement or revenue acceleration when you're choosing these business cases. Again, depends on the industry, depends on the application, but I will basically take a look at those 2 things.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Next question. What do we got? From Balaji. From your experience, can you share some examples of manufacturers who have combined location services inside a plant and outside the plant How did they do it? What value did they get? What systems did they use? Good question. I like that. You may not.
Yeah. So, well, we have seen hundreds, if not thousands, of use cases, but yeah. Well, we have worked with a partner a couple of years ago to basically install location-based services into refrigerators that are distributed across the continent of Africa. And we were basically looking at the locations of the refrigerators on a real-time basis. And the reason for it is basically shopkeepers.
Are they a moving target?
Yes, they're a moving target because shopkeepers were taking the refrigerators to their homes.
Okay. That's a whole
The
different
refrigerators belong to companies like, Pepsi and Coke and whatever, right? So, or beer distributors and, basically refrigerators that are placed inside a retail shop. They usually belong to the distributor or the brand. But, and then that's basically for brand identity. Having a cold can of some beer is basically way more important to that brand than anything else. But obviously not to the shopkeeper. So this was an interesting use case. So this was outside an operation, outside a plant, outside the manufacturing environment. And, I would have never guessed that I would be real-time tracking where refrigerators are. But, we did that. That was pretty interesting. And basically the ROI was there. And the reason for that is, well, these refrigerators are hundreds of dollars worth. And every other month you're basically losing one. It's basically more than the profits that you're making from this, low margin business, right? So we basically looked at the ROI and the.
And what system did you use? That was part of Balaji's question.
What's that?
What systems did you use?
This systems in terms of the technology stack.
Yeah.
This was basically communications was NB-IoT over LTE network. And, it was basically GPS technology for location services. And also, optionally, we basically had some mobile phone interactions with these refrigerators through Bluetooth Low Energy.
Interesting. What part of Africa, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm sorry?
What part of Africa?
Oh, this was the entire continent, actually, for one distributor. Wow. Because they distribute one company distributes to most of the Africa. So
interesting. Okay, Balaji, I'm sure you didn't see that answer coming. I didn't. Interesting. Next question, please. From Nikhil, will it be possible to remind or notify users about if products reach their destination?
Absolutely. This is probably like 20-30% of use cases anyway, or use cases call for this functionality. And on top of this, you basically have predictive tools to basically forecast when the arrival or ETA is going to happen as well. So if you're looking inside. If you're looking into shipments that are inside one company, one operation, so location A of a company is sending to the location B of the same company, things are way easier. But if company A is sending to a company B, both companies need to be talking the same language. So it basically comes to the integrations point over there. But given the API technology and again connectivity that we have today is in a stellar state. All these use cases are covered. I mean, when things leave the dock, when they're going to be, when they're expected to be seen at the, arrival dock, where they currently are. Remember, you don't need to know where everything is at every second in some use cases or most use cases. If you basically have a piece of equipment being shipped from one city to the other via a plane, you don't need to know where that plane is, but you need to know if it got on the plane, and we basically can tell that. If you really need to know where that plane is, we can actually give you that information as well. But what are you going to do? Are you going to stop the plane, turn the plane around, or is the at an additional stop to the destination of that plane? Probably not. So, you don't need to know everything at every given time, but, you basically extract what matters the most. So you can basically look at if the shipment has entered the plane, if the plane has landed, and then when am I expecting to see it at my doorstep.
Got it. Okay, good. Thank you. Next question. What do we got? From Danielle, aren't all these IoT devices making security issues worse?
The IoT devices. I think this question is asked. I understand that she does not like her refrigerator talking to her bank account.
Potentially.
So, yeah. Of course, we're basically having a hard time in terms of security today. All companies are, but I believe that with the correct ways of ensuring that security with encryption and key exchanges and so on and so forth, we circumvent. But here's a very interesting point. If you use location services data to further secure your communications, it might be your system might come out to be way more secure than your competitors. And the reason for that is, again, I'm going to go all the way back to my first point. Location can be a unique identifier at any given time for any object. So the IoT devices today, yes, they are vulnerable, and yes, there's a wide variety of them, and they basically create a pathway to hack into any system that they're connected to. But on the other hand, if you basically encrypt in the right way, and if you basically use seed data connected to these interesting parameters such as location services, custody services, and so on and so forth, custody and location information, they basically are way more secure than you can imagine.
Got it. So the positives outweigh the risks, the negatives. I understand. Okay, let's take one more question. We have, from a LinkedIn user, location tracking is a requirement within the internal workplace, but also externally. For instance, engineers in the water sector. How much work / coordination is being undertaken to combine your solution for both environments?
So again, it basically goes back to the fundamentals. We do quite a bit of work in terms of making our systems interoperate seamlessly indoors or outdoors. And I think that's what the question is referring to mostly. Inside an operation, inside a factory, inside a manufacturing floor, you're in a known place, you're in a known location. But then, water engineers can be outside, right? So we use different technologies, different wireless technologies or connectivity options, depending on the use case, obviously. So in this case, what we can do is we can bank on the existing Wi-Fi network inside a factory, and then let's just say MRO warehouse. The field technician comes to the warehouse and swipes his badge in, or maybe he's basically, because of location services, he's automatically detected from his badge using Bluetooth or using similar low range personal area or local area network. Then he can pick up a piece of inventory that can be using an RFID kind of a technology, and then he would walk out, and we can actually we can continue monitoring him through a GPS until, or maybe from a proximity sensor in his car. He gets into the car probably has a GPS, and that basically drives out to the field location where the water repair is going to be happening. So there's just bunch of technologies coming together and talking to each other. And it's important to basically be able to combine them all in one storyline, so that there's a cohesiveness and there's continuity in the story of what you're looking at. So yeah, it's possible to combine all these technologies together to arrive at it's an uninterrupted timeline of events and locations and what has happened to what and where. So it basically answers all the questions.
Yep. I'm going to ask you one last question. There's a few more still in there, which we're going to have to jump on after the show. But one here, in fact, Kartik, I think you've asked a couple of questions. So I'm going to take a drone question. So from Kartik, he asks, any use case implementation of drone-based location services?
Many. So drones are definitely, using location services, period. But if you wanted to implement a location-based service use case using a drone, now that basically the question has got the maybe tone of, can we deploy location-based services with drones? I believe you can, and that might not be a bad idea. Again, depends on what the return of that investment is going to doing to you. Drones. Most people think about the drones as just these like flying objects, but drones can be land drones as well. So I'm basically putting all of them together in one category. Many companies use these drones to basically count inventory and basically go find things in a shop floor or in a MRO warehouse. And I see some of these companies actually abandoning the systems. And the reason is drones in themselves require a lot of maintenance and require a lot of hand-holding and baby. So you do not really want to complicate your operations further by basically having to cater to yet one more point of failure. And what we see happening more often than not is basically tagging or putting sensors or identifiers on each object in a more granular way, as opposed to using a drone and basically looking at things in a warehouse to understand if the shelves are empty or full, inventory levels and whatnot. You basically tag every single item, and then you basically have maybe camera systems looking at these things, or you can basically have wireless systems looking at these things, and basically they're mostly maintenance free. There's no moving parts. There's no batteries to charge. There's quite a few things that you can do in a simple way, as opposed to mimicking a human being. I mean, you don't necessarily need to mimic or replace a human being or mimic the behavior that we're basically in when we're trying to achieve some task, right?
Good. Ziki, thank you so much. Christoph, I think we're all wrapped up here. I think we're done. Ziki, appreciate all of your answers. There's one or two still more left in the feed, so we'll make sure we get that to you for you to answer and pick up on all those things. So thanks again.
It was our pleasure.
Christoph, I'm sorry, buddy.
No, it was our pleasure to have him on the show.
You bet. Our pleasure.
Thanks for having me over here, and thanks to XDI and SBS. And we're happy working with you guys.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. Thanks, everyone. We're going to see you in 2 weeks' time with the next on Smart Manufacturing. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
2 weeks ahead. Thanks.